It's happening again. The New York Knicks are once again targeting Bruce Brown in the trade market and have contacted the Raptors for a player who the New York Knicks have been interested in for years, and we have to break it all down. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Knicks Digest. It's Chris here, and we're going to jump right into the video because Bruce Brown is someone who the Knicks have been targeting for ever, basically. Since Tom Thibodeau got to the New York Knicks and Bruce Brown became available, whether it was in free agency, whether it was in the trade market with the Pacers, whether it was in the trade market with the Toronto Raptors, Bruce Brown has been a guy who the New York Knicks have been targeting nonstop over the last few years. He's someone who the Knicks love. They think his energy perfectly fits the New York Knicks, something Bruce Brown would actually agree on, which he actually said in an interview once before. So we're going to talk about all this, guys. Starting with the fact that Bruce Brown is someone who the New York Knicks are interested in. As Jacoba Reynolds of Sports Illustrated mentioned, the Dallas Mavericks and New York Knicks have both inquired about Bruce Brown. Dallas contacted the Raptors and made an offer for Brown, but it was rejected. Now, on that front about Bruce Brown, I'm not Raptors Digest. I'm not Mavericks Digest. I will say, talking about that trade for half a second, I'd imagine that was when the the Mavericks really were trying to trade Tim Hardaway Jr., something they successfully did for former Knick Quentin Grimes. I'd imagine that they offered Hardaway and other sort of cap filler to try to bring Bruce Brown in, and it didn't work. I would guess that happened a bit of a time ago now. With the New York Knicks, they've been targeting Bruce Brown forever. It's someone who they've wanted to have on their team. But things have gotten a little bit more complicated since the Karl-Anthony Towns trade to the Knicks, where trading for Bruce Brown would be very, very difficult for the New York Knicks to actually pull off at this point. Though clearly the New York Knicks have been checking in on the price of Bruce Brown to see what the deal is. He's someone next year, once he becomes a free agent, is probably going to get targeted by the Knicks once again for a mid-level exception. Bruce Brown and these New York Knicks trade rumors are not going away. This is all happening again. We all know the Bruce Brown story. Man is an awesome role player. Puts up 11 points per game, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. Only shot 32% from 3 this year. He's a better shooter back in Denver. Now, shot 48% from the field, which is nice, but his corner 3 percentage wasn't good. He doesn't really shoot a lot of threes. He's of that Josh Hart mold of the perfect role player. And when the New York Knicks were targeting Bruce Brown over the trade deadline, I was pretty adamant that I didn't want the Knicks to really go for Brown. When you look at Bruce Brown, there is some problems, and the fact is, him and Josh Hart are very redundant together. They're basically the same player. They do the same thing, except Josh Hart's better. Yes, I imagine Bruce Brown would still lead to the New York Knicks winning more games because he's a phenomenal role player, and you can't go wrong with a great role player like Bruce Brown. You could figure it out, and you could, for 48 minutes, make sure you have one of Bruce Brown or Josh Hart on the court for the Knicks, something that would work out very well in the Knicks' favor, outside of times when they want to have their best shooting lineup on the court, which is Jalen Brunson, Deuce McBride, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, and Karl-Anthony Towns, something we will see the New York Knicks run a lot this season, as Deuce McBride is most likely going to be the team's 6th man, and he's going to try to take that Emmanuel Quickley role of being a great scoring combo guard off the bench. Now, the jury's out on if Deuce McBride can do that, and that will affect trades throughout the season, as the New York Knicks are going to need to know if they're going to need more scoring off the bench. Now, I've mentioned it before, Mikal Bridges, it's going to get staggered with him. He's going to get his minutes staggered. He's going to be the first guy off the court for the starting lineup. He's going to then be the first guy back in. Probably get subbed out with 5 minutes left in the first quarter, and then a minute or 2 left in the first, he'll come back in, or right into the second, he'll come back in and play the majority of the second quarter with the bench unit and just be their primary shot creator. So the Knicks have already kind of figured out the fact that, yeah, the scoring off the bench isn't great, but you have Deuce McBride, you have Landry Shamet, you have guys who can be set up if there's another shot creator like a Mikal Bridges on the floor. Having Tyler Kolek, if he's going to play at that point guard spot, he's going to create looks for others. He's a phenomenal passer. Also can put the ball in the basket himself. First preseason game of his NBA career, the man put up 10 points, went 3 for 5 on 3, had a great game. Actually, 11 points, went 3 for 5 from 3. The man was great. The New York Knicks bench is not as bad as people seem to fear that it is, and for some reason, everyone's convinced that this Knicks bench is just going to be a disaster this season, which is far from the truth. They have a bunch of good players off it. It's why they want to add a guy like Bruce Brown. He's just another addition of a great guy, a great bench piece who would really fit on this New York Knicks team, and that's something Bruce Brown himself talked about. Now, after a game that they played against the Raptors in January, Bruce Brown was asked about the Knicks and his potential fit on like a Tom Thibodeau team. very leading question, obviously, and he responded, I'm a dog. I play extremely hard on both ends of the floor. I could do just about whatever Thibodeau needs me to do. That's very, very wild for a player to mention, but it's probably pretty clear that if you're Bruce Brown, he probably didn't want to be on the Raptors last season once he got traded there. He knew they weren't trying to win anything. He was traded for Pascal Siakam. They had entered a rebuild built around Scotty Barnes, R.J. Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, Grady Dick. They have a bunch of young players on this team, and we've seen Jakob Poeltl essentially go out there and say, why even bother trying to win every game? That's not even what this team's trying to do. We've seen Bruce Brown outright talk about how he fits on a Tom Thibodeau team. It's hard to imagine these guys who would be good role players on championship teams today want to play for the Toronto Raptors. Now, they're not necessarily a bad team at all. The Raptors, I actually think, are a little bit underrated. But here's the deal. They're not going to win the NBA Finals. They're probably not going to make it into the NBA playoffs. I imagine there'll be a play-in team. I think the play-in is going to be the Pacers, Heat, Hawks, and Raptors. I think those are the 4 play-in teams in the Eastern Conference. In that exact order, 7 to 10 also, I would say. And it's hard to imagine the Raptors getting into the playoffs, and this team doesn't have that much playoff experience. Yeah, Barrett and Quickley have been there with the Knicks before, and Poeltl has been there with the Spurs a little bit. But, come on. There's not too much experience there. It's hard to imagine them making the playoffs, so it's hard to imagine role players wanting to be there, and that's why the New York Knicks are interested in acquiring role players. They want as many role players as possible, especially when they did get a little thinner. Objectively, when you're trading away the guy who's going to be one of the best 6 men in basketball, and Donte DiVincenzo, a man who started on your team the year prior and put up 15.5 points per game on 40% shooting from deep, yeah, you're going to need some more bench help. Bruce Brown gives bench help in a much, much different light than a Donte DiVincenzo, where they're completely different players, but it just is more bench help that the team could use. There is a problem with this Bruce Brown trade, though. This contract is a problem. Look at the New York Knicks. Who are they trading? Mitch, $14.3 million this season? Okay. You still need to find another $9 million to add on so you could even get this trade done and not go into the second apron. Look, when you're an apron team, you cannot take in more money than you give out. The New York Knicks, I love this new setup. Also, I'm no longer in the little box thing. I've been freed from the box. But this contract, man, where are you getting $9 million from outside of Mitchell Robinson? Precious Achiuwa is $6 million. That's still not enough. That's just $20.3 million. If you're going to make a trade with the Raptors and you're going to trade Mitchell Robinson, you're also going to be trading Precious Achiuwa, and it's going to be for Jakob Poeltl, where the Knicks better be getting some draft compensation to give that up. That's just my thoughts on this. It's basically impossible for the New York Knicks to even make the trade right here. Wow, that was really bad. Right here. This trade right here. It's tough to make this deal work. It's hard to imagine it will work. I think we're past the point of Bruce Brown being traded to the New York Knicks, unless it's a situation where we see Brown sign with the team in free agency for a mid-level exception. I don't really believe that Bruce Brown's going to be getting a $23 million contract again from the Pacers. The Pacers did that to get a tradable deal in Bruce Brown with a tradable player who's very good, who's good for any team that acquires him, and they knew they'd be able to make a splash using that contract, something they absolutely did, especially when Brown was not playing very well on the Pacers. It made perfect sense for them. The thing here is now, Bruce has not lived up to that $23 million contract. I'm going to tell you guys right now, the Knicks are not going to be acquiring Bruce Brown in this season, but they're going to go for him using a mid-level exception next summer, and it's going to be very interesting to see what they offer him considering all these aprons and stuff. So, guys, make sure you subscribe for when that thing eventually happens. And all the other great Knicks news. We have a ton of fun stuff coming. We have a social media account dropping on both Twitter and Instagram. You'll find us around this season. Knicks Digest is going to the moon. Make sure to tune in for every Friday at 6 p.m. Knicks Digest Happy Hour live stream with me and often my usual Knicks Digest Happy Hour co-host Matthew Long, who will be on for most of the videos. So guys, make sure you don't miss any of that. It's a great time. Those live streams are the best part of this channel, if I'm being honest. It's the most fun thing in the world. You don't want to miss it. So many good laughs. So much great conversation. Guys, I wear like 6 Knicks jerseys at once for some reason because the chat loves it. Have a great day and go Knicks.